Good morning, senators, representatives, constituents, and advocates. My name is Christopher Almeida. I'm a legislative advocate with Thirst, Cocktails for Commonwealth, and a stay-at-home dad. Thank you for being here with us today. We have a great group that's going to present to everybody. We have Amanda Converse, the CEO of Love Live Local, Senator DiZoglio joining us, Mr. Bob Luz from the Massachusetts Restaurant Association, Nancy Caldwell from the Massachusetts Restaurant United, and Zach Hoffman, the CEO of Thirst, who actually flew in from DC to join us for the day here in Boston. You know, everybody thought that once things went back to normal and restrictions were lifted, our economy and society will return to normal. Little did we know that the pandemic would turn the world of the small business upside down. You know, not only are we living and operating with restrictions and policies and policing them and all these new safety policies, many in the community didn't get the help they needed from the government funding that was available. Almost everyone was turned down by their insurance companies when they asked if there was help in their policies. And the insurance industry as a business that actually grew 13% from 2020 to 2021. And, you know, now that things are back to normal, we are seeing an invasion of ghost kitchens and unchecked delivery services chipping away at the profits of our small business. You know, now we also have a shortage staff. Whoever thought that that would happen? You know, we have businesses that are not able to open as many hours as they could be because of the lack of staff. This means that the hours that they are open, they need as many ways to make income as quickly as possible. Not only that, the supply chain issues we're having and the cost of goods is rising over 20% on common items. It's, you know, it's pretty crazy. So we have our small businesses that are dying by a million cuts, you know, and we need to find a way to help them survive and enact measures and actions that we're speaking about today. You know, and right now we have the opportunity to address these issues. We also have the opportunity to change the culture for the better and create permanent revenue streams for businesses to rely on, such as outdoor dining and to-go cocktails. All of these things are important, and every little bit matters. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Converse here. And hi, Amanda, how are you? Thanks for coming.
Hi, thank you for having me, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. As Chris said, my name is Amanda Converse, and I'm the CEO of Love Live Local. We're a local business advocacy group located on Cape Cod. We are also part of a network of independent business associations around the country, working to support local economies in our respective regions. This includes organizations located across the state of Massachusetts in places like Waltham, Salem, Jamaica Plain, and Cambridge. So there's no doubt in anyone's mind that the COVID-19 pandemic devastated many small businesses across the country and left the smallest businesses in Massachusetts hurting the most. In 2020, nearly 100,000 independent businesses closed permanently in the US, and according to a report in November 2020, small business revenue was down 31%, and among independent restaurants and other hospitality businesses, revenue fell 58%. True that data was from a year ago, and things have gotten better for many, but not for all. And it takes years to recover from those kinds of losses. What's also true is that small businesses were facing extraordinary challenges to their survival long before the pandemic. Over the past 5 decades, businesses across the country have been facing many challenges due to a variety of market forces centered around public policy decisions made at the local, state, and federal level. Policies that come in the form of tax subsidies to large corporations or lack of oversight that has led to corporate consolidation and appropriation. These policies have enabled corporations to get bigger and more powerful in almost every economic sector. This is the reason that local newspapers are failing across the country, that we have terrible internet connectivity, there are fewer local banks to make small business loans, grocery prices continue to go up, small farmers are over $400 billion in debt, and deep-pocketed tech companies like Grubhub and Amazon have been able to extract wealth and consumer data from small restaurants and retailers to pad their bottom lines and distribute dividends to their Wall Street investors. We saw the bigger is better bias that has been cultivated and grown in our economic system play out in real time during the pandemic. At the national level, many deserving small businesses were left out of the first round of the Paycheck Protection Program as the money disappeared quickly into the pockets of big corporations like the Hilton hotels. And the federal government funneled billions of dollars to oil companies and the airline industry. In the state of Massachusetts, we saw big box stores like Walmart and Target allowed to stay fully open while small retailers had to shut their doors because they didn't sell essential items like groceries. So you could pop over to Walmart to grab toilet paper if they had it, and while you were at it, pick up a new pair of sweatpants or a new rug, but you couldn't even walk into a locally owned home goods or clothing store. And when the vaccines were rolled out, local pharmacies were shut out of the process for months in favor of chains like CVS and Walgreens. Because of policy decisions like these, local businesses were once again left at a distinct disadvantage to their corporate counterparts during one of the most challenging economic times in our history. And it's not surprising that during the pandemic, we saw America's biggest companies like Amazon and Walmart make record profits. It's time for the state to enact policies that are designed to help small businesses survive, yes, but also thrive. If the small businesses in our state have any hope of long-term recovery, additional and focused support from the Massachusetts legislature is needed. These bills that we're discussing today, like extending third-party delivery app fees, outdoor dining allowances, and the ability to sell cocktails to go, providing grants to businesses who have yet to access any government funds, and compelling insurance companies to pay out on legitimate business interruption claims address the impacts of the pandemic. But they are also a step towards leveling the playing field for small businesses as they continue to compete against outsized corporate power and contribute vital resources to our local communities. Now I'm going to turn it over to Senator Diana DiZoglio, who has remained in this fight and has been an important advocate for small businesses on Beacon Hill and in introducing these key pieces of legislation. Thank you, Senator.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you all virtually to see your smiling, shining, bright faces on this very dreary day, helping to brighten up the day. So thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules. I'm going to try to recognize a couple of legislators that I do see on the call. Please make sure you put your title in the box if you haven't done so, so that I can make sure that I do see you because I'm not wearing my glasses. I do see Representative Itzaros here today, Representative Mira. Let me see here, I'm going to scroll. Representative Kip Diggs, all the way from the Cape, virtually. Let me see here. I do see, I think I had Representative Tammy Govea, Representative Adam Scanlon, and I see several offices here, but I can't read them all because of my gallery view. So if you could do me a favor, if you'd like your office to be recognized for being here, please do put that in the chat so that folks know that you're here. And see your support for fighting alongside of us for this important legislation. Thanks so much. My name is Diana DiZoglio, and I humbly serve as state senator for the 1st Essex District in the Merrimack Valley. And I'd first like to thank everyone who has joined us for today's Small Business Day of Action, the local, aside from the legislators or in addition to them, local business owners, entrepreneurs, advocates, elected officials, and other stakeholders, Chamber of Commerce directors, many of whom you'll hear from today. I'm so grateful to organizations, including the Massachusetts Restaurants Association, the Massachusetts Restaurants United, Cambridge Local First, Love Live Local, Cocktails for Commonwealth, and the Massachusetts chapter of Thirst for being here and for all you do to support our small business community. Thank you. Only together will we be able to accomplish our goals of ensuring local businesses receive the support and resources that they need as Massachusetts continues in its recovery from the pandemic. And I'd like to just take some time today to discuss a few important bills that I've filed in this session aimed at supporting our small businesses and talk about why their passage is integral in this recovery, in this continued recovery. One particularly essential measure that our local restaurants sorely need is an extension of the current Cocktails to Go program. And I have filed two bills, Senate Bill 196 and Senate Docket 2671, the first of which would extend Cocktails to Go for 2 more years, and the second of which would make this program permanent. I filed both of these to try to find any potential pathway forward to making sure that we continually are working to extend this in any way, shape, or form for our local mom and pop restaurants. Businesses are still in survival mode, and if we have any intention of helping them actually recover, they will continue to need programs like Cocktails to Go that provide them with much needed revenue streams now and in the future. Many small business owners have shared with us how important the To Go Cocktails program has been in keeping their doors open. They've expressed how devastating it was to have to turn into a takeout operation and lose 100% of liquor sales when their restaurants were ordered to close to the public in the early days of the pandemic. And they couldn't come close to breaking even. But when the state finally approved cocktails to go, it was huge for them and their staff. They all say it's desperately needed to stay in place as they try to recover their losses in the coming years. Some restaurants and bars reported sales figures down by 50%, while the cocktails to go beverage sales made up as much as 10% of their sales. That's a huge addition to helping them keep the lights on, helping them pay the bills, helping them pay their rent. And that income also helped to keep staff on the payroll as well. But to make this opportunity work for them, many restaurants had to invest significant resources in building up a cocktails to go program. They had to purchase sealable bottles, caps, shrink wraps, labels, and spend time, man hours, developing systems online and in-house. We must make it possible for them to continue to get a return on this investment. In addition to lost revenue streams as a result of no indoor dining or liquor sales, restaurants have also been subjected to exploitation by third-party delivery apps, taking advantage of them during this time with exorbitant fees. Delivery companies charge restaurants a minimum of 25, or have charged a minimum of 25 to 30% for their service of placing an order, picking it up, and delivering it. Depending on marketing and promotion options, restaurants can pay even higher fees. When delivery sales were 5 to 10% of sales, delivery fees took 2 to 3% of total restaurant revenue. With delivery sales at 70 to 80% of restaurant sales during the most of the pandemic, the delivery companies were taking 18 to 20% of restaurant revenues. When the average restaurant profit margins are at 8 to 10%, this makes restaurants no longer viable. And I know you all agree that's simply not acceptable or sustainable for our mom and pop local restaurants. Delivery sales are proving to be a money-losing proposition for restaurants when they are forced, and I repeat, forced to pay an exorbitant percentage to these delivery companies. And I've had a lot of folks say, well, you know, if they enter into contracts with these folks and they're utilizing their delivery services, that, you know, the free market is there and they need to decide whether or not they want to participate based on those fees. Many of these restaurants are forced to pay these percentages, and they're not entering into understandings or to contracts with these delivery companies. So we need to do a lot of work on this very important topic to make sure that, you know, these propositions are and proposals are profitable, and that our restaurants are not being exploited. So for this, I filed Senate Docket 2556, an act relative to extending third-party delivery cost containment for restaurants to regulate these fees, as delivery sales are going to make up a significant portion of restaurant sales for the foreseeable future. And if we don't, we're liable to see more restaurant closures and jobs lost moving forward. Our local restaurants really are depending on us to take action. And I know that folks have heard about this from the Attorney General's office and the actions that she's taking, but we need to do our part in the legislature to work alongside of her efforts. There's also the significant issue of business interruption insurance. At a time when so many small businesses throughout Massachusetts had their business operations interrupted in some way, insurers have been strictly denying all claims under business interruption coverage, saying that the situation doesn't fit the insuring agreement, that pandemics are not covered. One restaurant on Cape Cod that's been in business for 31 years, paying their business interruption insurance premiums year after year, made their first claim ever when state orders require their business to close due to COVID-19. Their claim was denied. This past summer, their revenue was consistently down 50% from 2019. A restaurant in Newton, which also filed multiple claims that were denied, reported their sales were down 85%. Another restaurant and event venue in Hyannis was down almost 1 million in sales in 2020. But they were denied a business interruption insurance claim and told that if they wanted to appeal this decision, they would have to go through a lengthy and expensive legal process. These stories are not unique to the restaurant industry. Thousands of businesses across Massachusetts have had very similar experiences. The truth is, it was not the pandemic that forced their closure. State orders did, triggering additional coverage under most policies called civil authority action. Civil authority action, which is covered by most business interruption insurance policies. They've been continually being denied the coverage they are very much entitled to. The financial support small businesses receive from the federal and state governments was welcome, but for many, it was not easy to access and just wasn't nearly enough to cover the losses they've incurred. That restaurant that lost $1 million last year, they were able to secure a PPP loan, but it was only for $135,000. So they lost $1 million and they got a PPP loan for $135,000. Consumers have also stepped up to the plate, supporting small businesses as much as they can by shopping local and even donating money to local fundraising efforts. Now it is time for the insurance industry to do the same. It's time for them to meet their responsibilities and to honor legitimate business interruption claims. So the legislation I filed this session, Senate Bill 660, an act relative to business interruption insurance, would remove unnecessary impediments to claims being fulfilled for reasons such as a bias toward the idea that COVID-19 is only present in a limited way. It would place rebuttable presumption on specific factual requirements that are necessary for successful claims to move forward. The insurance industry might claim that paying out on these claims would bankrupt them, but according to the Insurance Information Institute, the insurance industry is sitting on close to $800 billion in reserves, $800 billion in reserves, and it would take less than half of that payout, the legitimate claims made by the small businesses that have paid tens of thousands of dollars a year for this coverage. So less than half. This essential piece of legislation is crucial for protecting our small businesses, and it is unacceptable that our local mom and pop shops pay insurance claims to protect against incidents of this nature while not being permitted to access those much needed funds. So I do want to conclude with that and say, there are a lot of great pieces of legislation that are working their way through the Small Business Committee, through the Economic Development Committee, through many different committees right now that do warrant much needed attention. These are just a few of the things that we wanted to highlight today. And I do want to say thank you for the legislators who have joined. I hope you'll work alongside of us in trying to promote the passage of these very important bills and to work with committee chairs on making sure that we can get a version of these bills that's something we can get through both the Senate and the House and through the governor's desk, because we know that our small businesses really need help right now. But it is going to take all of us working together to come up with some solutions and to get these bills across the finish line. So again, thank you so much, and I will turn it back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator. Now we're going to turn it over to Bob Luz, the president of the Massachusetts Restaurant Association. Thanks for being with us today, Bob.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Senator DiZoglio, I want to thank you for all your efforts. You've been dogged in the pursuit of small business and certainly in the restaurant hospitality field for sure. And that means a lot to us. I also want to thank all of your fellow elected officials that are on here, some of whom you named, some of whom are showing up in the chat now. The one thing I will say before I even get going here is that we've been overwhelmed with the support that we have received, and with many who understand that the Massachusetts legislature needs to continue to help this industry and to continue to help small business as we recover. And the recovery is certainly far from complete. And in fact, I'll speak to this in a couple of seconds. In some cases, we're in reverse now. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund that Chris spoke about and Senator DiZoglio spoke about, we were one of only 2 industries to receive federal funding. I guess the good news is we were on that list. The bad news is we were on that list. That speaks exactly to how devastating this impact has been to the service sector and to the hospitality industry. And the saddest part is that 64% of the restaurants who applied, who live right next door to a restaurant that received it, have been shut out and have not received it. And that's been very troubling for the industry, very troubling for those individuals, and frankly, very troubling for those that have received funding because they don't feel comfortable that they've received it and their neighbor across the street has not. And they'd be the first ones to say, we need to complete that process. We work nonstop on that with our partners at the National Restaurant Association. We certainly have strong support from our federally elected officials here in Massachusetts, but they continue to need to be reminded how important that is, and we need to complete that mission. So that's sort of the most critical thing, I think, from a federal level that we can reinforce at every step of the way. In terms of the state of the industry, let me quickly talk backwards, move forwards. I think it's pretty well documented, but again, we'll frame it. March 1st, 2020, there were over 16,000 restaurants in Massachusetts. We employed over 300,000 people within the four walls of those restaurants. By the end of the month, by March 17th, when we were shut down, first industry to be shut down, we furloughed 255,000 of the 300,000 employees, which was devastating to each and every owner, devastating to myself and obviously anybody involved in the industry. And when we were finally able to reopen our restaurants 3 months later, 3,400 of those restaurants never reopened their doors. And that is just heartbreaking. And each and every one of those individual numbers is a story in and of itself because it affected every community across Massachusetts. As we, got through, we got through into the early winter last year, and then we saw a second surge, a second shutdown. The good news is we had a number of restaurants that had been open in the summer and fall. They hibernated for the winter and decided they'd have to close, just pay fixed cost and try and reopen when they got to the other side of winter. And that was a strategy that actually largely worked. And it was very, very important. And virtually all of those over 500 restaurants that did that reopened. And then we got into this spring and fall and had a pretty good season, especially in suburban areas. We still are dramatically impacted inside of greater Boston, especially inside of the larger cities that employ a lot of folks because frankly, the workplaces haven't returned. And so we have opportunities, obviously, in those large cities, and we're really dragging there. We did a survey in the second week of September, along with the National Restaurant Association, and we got results for our Massachusetts contingent to say, okay, as we're coming through this, how has it been most recently? And certainly, while it had been better, over 64% of operators said their sales were lower in August of 2021 than they were in August of 2019. That is that's 2 years ago. That's pre-pandemic. And certainly we've had, sadly, and we'll get to this, inflation numbers that, is between 8 and 10% since then. So we are significantly off. 59% of the operators said that business conditions for the restaurants are worse now than they were 3 months ago. And 82% of the restaurants experienced a decline in indoor dining. All of this points to the effect of the Delta variant and our inability to get really and truly past this. And it's especially important to understand when we think about an area like Massachusetts, up in the Northeast here, where obviously it's awful weather today and probably looks like most of this week, but we're going to lose the ability to have outdoor as a significant source of revenue or significant source of dining very, very quickly here. We will have some hardy folks that will continue to do this in and through the winter, but we face the challenge of now having to come indoors for the vast majority of our sales. And while many people are very comfortable, many more than last year, we all know folks that are still uncomfortable doing that. And so, again, we're going into a winter with a big question mark over our heads, and you certainly heard that from the operators in that survey. The other thing that's happened, and again, well documented, is inflation has hit our industry as it's hit everybody, but in the restaurant industry, food costs have gone up significantly. The menu prices are up 4.7% in the last 12 months, the highest increases in the country in the Northeast. So here we're up 5.4%. And when you look at food prices in general, the prices that restaurants are paying, and we have restaurateurs on here, and Nancy obviously will speak to this, I'm sure, but beef is up 57%, fats and oils 50%, poultry 30%, seafood 16%. It is across the board. It is double digit everything and high double digits. So, you know, here we are, we're faced with it's getting cold out there, and we still have customers that are hesitant to go inside. So it's, you know, when we talk about, you know, the recovery, and we're starting now to use the word we're in reverse, the numbers are backing that up. And so we really have huge challenges for this recovering industry as we go forward. I do want to speak to a couple of things that the senator spoke to. The only silver lining in all of this awful time, this awful pandemic from the restaurant industry standpoint, food and beverage industry standpoint, has been outdoor dining. And everybody has embraced it, from guests to local elected officials to downtown businesses, you know, and beyond. Outdoor dining has been warmly received. It's brought a vibrancy back to downtowns. It's brought a vibrancy to neighborhoods out in the suburbs. Everyone has enjoyed it. And we are, you know, we need to make that process permanent. And right now, the governor extended it until April. We have been working, in the Massachusetts Restaurant Association has been working collaboratively with the ABCC, the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure. Municipal employees are making the outdoor dining authorization permanent. It's something that continues to work. We continue to work on. It's something that, again, the mayors that are serving on this committee are adamant needs to happen. And you know, we're looking to address long-term issues that include ADA compliance and occupancy permit violations and reduced parking spaces. So we are working collaboratively on that. We're making good progress, and we hope to have something soon for you. Beer and wine, cocktails to go. And again, that is very, very important for us for the future. Drinks to go. You know, we've done a great job of teaching folks that you can enjoy a great meal at your house, and we've taught them how to do takeout, and we've done it apparently too well. You know, 20% when last summer and fall, 25% of our sales continued to be takeout to go on a weekly basis. Over the winter, that jumped to 40 to 45% of weekly sales. And when we came back into the spring and summer, I think everybody expected that was going to flatten out. But guess what? It went right back to 20 to 25% of sales going out of our dining rooms and into your dining rooms. And what is really critical is, and what the demand is, and so this is now a permanent shift, and this is why this is important. Just like we can't cook as well as the chef at the local restaurant, and that's why we order a takeout dinner. We can't make a great drink like our mixologists do at our restaurants. And that's sorely missing, and that's been a demand that we've heard from our guests. You know, try as I may, I can't make the Mai Tai, the Kowloon Mai Tai. I can't make, you know, a great Manhattan, especially if it's going to have maple infusion and bacon in it. You know, and those are things that we can get from a restaurant that makes us enjoy it a little bit more at home. There's demand for it, and it is critical for restaurants to be able to get that little add-on sales. Every sale that goes out our door is far more expensive than producing it inside, and we get the same sell price for it. So being able to get a little bit of what folks are asking for is important. And I know that the liquor store, the package store association has really come out strongly against this. We're not in competition with them. Nobody's buying gin and vodka from us to store up, 20, 30 ounces to have at home. It's a convenience buy of beer and wine. And it's really these specialty cocktails that can't be replicated, that can't be done in our house and made the same way a great mixologist can. So we really would hope that you would look strongly at that. And finally, one thing I do want to make a point of saying, and we've been on record with this, and we shared this with all the legislators, in terms of the ARPA funding, which is obviously a hot topic right now, we have advocated strongly for the fact that a portion of this it should be, and by design has been indicated that it should be spent on hospitality and tourism. We strongly believe that investing in our hotels and incentivizing travel and business travel back into Massachusetts is absolutely critical. Hotels have been left at the train station waiting for help. They are in desperate need. And if we can incentivize, Apple Computer to come back here for a conference for 500 or 1,000 people and give them an incentive to say, come to Massachusetts, then that's going to work for hotels. That's going to work for our tourist destinations. That's going to trickle down into our restaurants. And so that's why we've sort of have said on those monies designated for hotels, designated for the tourist attractions, and designated to a meeting incentive and our RTCs to get business back into the four walls of Massachusetts. So with that, I will shut up. I thank you for listening to my rambling message. Again, we really do appreciate all the help that you've shown us in the past, and we're very hopeful to see more help in the future. Thanks, Chris. I'll turn it back to you.
All right, Bob, thank you so much. That was a lot of great information there. Now we're going to go with Nancy Caldwell of Massachusetts Restaurant United. Welcome, Nancy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And thank you, Senator Diana DiZoglio, and for all of you today joining us. It's so great to see many of you joining the conversation and taking a moment to understand our industry. I think one of the benefits of the last 19 months is the importance of raising our voices, and the opportunity and platforms that we've been given has been tremendous. But we still have a lot of fighting to do. Chris, you mentioned the new norm, which is, it's not at all what we expected it to be. We're still learning how to live with COVID. We tell people this all the time. Our businesses are operating day by day. A restaurant owner, it's impossible to plan for longer than 24 hours, to be completely honest. We're flying blindly through this pandemic. We were forced to shut down March 16th of 2020, and we still have a tremendous amount of almost PTSD from that time. We're in fear of what could potentially happen with a Delta variant. What's happening now with losing our patios, as many cities and towns in our state are pulling those. Here in Newburyport, just at the end of the week, our city patios are being taken. And so there's still so much unknown. Business dining hasn't returned, which part of our state benefits from, looking at a big part of our city in Boston based on the conventions and tourism still being down. And there's just a real big challenge with large group dining happening internally in the restaurants, whether it's parties of even larger than 8. There's a lot of concern there. The new norm is certainly not what we anticipated it being, and we are certainly not past the hump. Every industry still continues to pivot on how they're operating, and we are doing the same, as we see so many of the businesses in C Corp, for example, not returning to office and still working remote, or giving them the opportunity to have a stay at home. And so with that, we're forced to continue to do the same. Also, COVID is still abruptly shutting down restaurants. I feel like that conversation is not at the top of the headlines these days, or on our social media platforms. We're not feeling so compelled to jump online and have to let everybody know about the modified hours. However, we're still seeing many restaurants who have had their staff vaccinated, who has had their staff receive the boosters, but they're still having COVID exposures and still being forced to shut down through the Board of Health. And with that, we sit on inventories, and it's a super big challenge that we'll continue to be exposed to as we learn to work with COVID. We've also shined some light today on the call on the labor shortage piece, as I also like to refer to it as the wage shortage piece. And with some government aid, it's allowed our industry to raise wages, to fill positions. Many of us are still not on that same playing field. We know how important RRF was to getting aid to many small independent restaurant owners, but we did not succeed at filling the whole entire need here. And to echo some of the statements from Bob, we fully appreciate that Massachusetts did receive a good chunk of the RRF allocation, and but not all of our restaurants were fulfilled. And it did give us a runway to take off after we've been paused for such the last 19 months, but it did not give everybody the same playing field. And while we thank the state of Massachusetts for co-sponsoring the replenishment of the RRF, we still have a long way to go. Many of our members have come forth and let us know that, if they didn't have funding in October or by the beginning of November, that the potential was real that they would not renew leases. And we are seeing that there's a lot of potential here that this is going to happen. And so the bills that Senator Diana DiZoglio has put on the floor, they just chip away at what we already know have been setbacks for the last 19 months. Expense management is the only thing that's left for many small business owners at this point. They're cutting costs however they possibly can do that. However, some things are completely out of their wheelhouse. They don't fully understand how to operate without certain things in place, but also new things that are being put in place for us. Bob spoke a little bit about food costs, but thinking about chemicals, sanitizer, trash bags, even coffee, teas for that matter. We just got an email the other day about how teas are rising in cost. And so it's out of control, of course. We all understand that and know that, but it's really how do we start to educate the guest on what it's going to be, to the cost it'll be to dine inside a restaurant. And many of us are not going to be in the position to be able to afford dining out as often or frequently. One of the things we did not speak about today is, which I think certainly benefits the Cocktail to Go program, in my own personal experience, is that our distributors in the state of Massachusetts are also experiencing a lot of labor shortages. And with that, every minimum has increased. So what we're seeing is the inability to potentially order a smaller amount of inventory going into our slower seasons, because in an effort to get a delivery for a week or for the month, we have to require a minimum spend. And so the difference when it comes to fully explain the industry to many of you on the call and the benefit of the Cocktail to Go program, and the reason why it was such an important push in the pandemic, at least from a small independent operator, is that we were sitting on an inventory value, many restaurants sitting on an inventory liquor value of $8,000 to $20,000 worth of dollars in an effort to, serve liquor in our restaurants. When we were closed during the pandemic, that money wasn't in our bank. It was sitting in our basements. It was sitting in locked up lockers on the back of our bar. Giving us the opportunity to roll out Cocktails to Go allowed us to not necessarily make the same margin, but to be able to make some money back. And most importantly, push out the asset that we were sitting on, so we could get cash flow to either pay the COVID payment plans back to our distributors, or to just pay any debt that wasn't covered by the PPP. Now the position that we're in is that we're receiving these limitations by our distributors due to their labor shortages, that suddenly what was a $150 delivery has now become $350 or a $500 minimum spend. So going into an off season for some of our seasonal restaurants, for example, when you would be able to break a a case of, let's just say, vodka and get 3 bottles of it, you're now looking at getting 6 bottles of it because you have to get it on the truck and you have to use your money to put it on the truck. If we aren't able to move alcohol, we're creating the same inventory value that we had when we were going into the pandemic. And giving us the opportunity to maintain cocktails to go allows us to state of emergency. We appreciate her energy shining light on some of these businesses, but the fight's still not over. The third-party cap fee has been a strong priority for our organization. We've taken the time to connect with other cities and their organizations across the country to discuss the implementation of their bills, specifically those in San Francisco and New York City. The New York City Hospitality Alliance has been a wealth of knowledge for us in better understanding not only how to hold these businesses accountable, but also to be focused on the worker bills. There's several worker bills for these third-party companies in place, and what it would mean for employees contracted by these companies. While regulating an industry like DoorDash or Uber Eats is a major challenge, and we do understand that there are certain senators in the state of Massachusetts that are opposing them, we do believe that it's important that we continue to shine light on these businesses. While some of our regions in the state may not be so heavily impacted by these services, A, because their communities aren't supporting delivery fees by going to the restaurants directly, or B, because these companies don't have the same leverage in other parts by not having enough drivers, enough employees. They're not able to raise their voices and push this bill through as many other cities, just like Boston or Cambridge, might be more severely impacted by these delivery cap fees. So it's about educating these different senators and representatives in different parts of the states to fully understand that maybe it's not in their backyard and they're not dealing with this. It is something to raise your voice about across the board. We do realize that these companies are, like I said, attempting to align properly with us by offering tiered programs. This is a new thing for them. They're offering tiered programs by suggesting, 15% gets you very base, no search engine optimization, 20 to 25% gives you this, 30 to 35% gives you this, but this is not full transparency on exactly what we're going to be getting and offering. And this is a business that is very much an extension of what's happening in our restaurants. I urge you all listening to the call today to realize that small independent restaurant owners are not out of the pandemic. Like I've said, we're flying blindly still. We have another season to focus on here coming into a rainy week, like Bob said. So any effort that you can put forth, any energy that you can put forth, any opportunity that you can to rally behind us is so much appreciated. And I appreciate the state of Massachusetts, as does the MRU, for all of its support and listening and learning about our industry and understanding what our margins look like and coming to the table to hear our stories. I think that's been such a big part of the last 19 months as well as a state. And Diana, for being a champion for us and hearing us over and over talk about what it's like to be in our business. It's certainly been a devastating 19 months, and we still believe that we have a long way to go.
Nancy, thank you so much for everything you had to say. And I just want to make a point real quick about something Nancy had to say about issues and one affecting one area and not affecting another. No matter what the issue is, we're united. We have to be united about our industry, small business and hospitality. And just because it's not affecting one place, it's affecting another place, doesn't mean we shouldn't be supporting it. We have to be supporting these measures across the board, whether or not it's going to impact our bottom line more than one or the other, just because this is how our industry will survive, and another point about to the Package Store Association fighting, us to having to-go cocktails. If anybody has had a canned cocktail from a liquor store. You know, they're considered RTD, ready to drink beverages. The ready to drink beverage industry has exploded inside of package stores, and it's even working its way into restaurants. So now some places have ready to drink cocktails in cans that they're able to serve, and they're making even less of a margin on them. And, you know, when it comes down to it, the argument that the liquor stores aren't going to be hurting because of these things that, you know, they are able to sell to-go cocktails in cans. Why can't we? But, you know, that's just one point we just have to keep fighting to, you know, for a whole industry. So now I'm going to turn it over to Zach. He's going to close us out, and then I'll come right back with a call to action. All right, Zach, the CEO of Thirst, has joining us all the way from DC. Thanks, Zach.
Good morning, everyone. I'm joining you from Boston, but I am from the great soon-to-be state of Washington, D.C. Have to have that statehood in there. I am so impressed by everyone on this phone call. I want to just let you know that, unfortunately, I've been on too many of these calls. Impassioned hospitality professionals, operators, advocates, having to explain themselves to elected officials. And fortunately, we are joined by elected officials today who clearly understand the severity of the situation that our industry's in, our workforce is in, and the fact that these bills are even possibly going to be passed soon is such a relief for so many, I can already tell you. Anyone in the House or the Senate of this great state who is thinking of not supporting these bills, and they're here, or maybe they'll see this video, I have to tell you, you need to support these. You in Massachusetts are on the precipice of a really game-changing situation with the business interruption insurance legislation that's been proposed. Thirst has been working on this for the entirety of the pandemic. I started working with the group back in April of 2020. We laser focused on this issue because Nancy, I think, brought up a really great point. A lot of issues were going on with the hospitality industry before COVID, and COVID either exacerbated them or created brand new things that we weren't dealing with. That's really been a struggle for the last, 2 years. Unfortunately, we've been fought in every single way. Any way you could imagine it, we've been fought by the insurance lobby for this specific type of legislation. We are not trying to retroactively change contracts. We're not trying to do anything that would invalidate the Constitution, which is certainly something that the insurance lobby likes to say we're trying to do. Without this legislation, a lot of businesses are gonna close, just due to the fact of the nature that these insurance companies are going to fail the responsibility of paying out claims that they should be. And it's just going to exacerbate more problems. But I bring good news for all of you here in Massachusetts. The other two bills that you have here have been done, and they've been done successfully. And I've read the language. I really like them a lot. We've done them in DC. They've been done in New York City. They've been done in San Francisco. They are so critical to the survivability and the ability to let thrive our industry. To-go cocktails and the caps on the fees of these delivery apps is so critical. These delivery companies are not hospitality companies, they're tech companies. And there's no reason why DoorDash should be reporting $1 billion in profit while all of us here in the restaurant industry across the country are down in the red every single week, every month, laying off more staff, unsure of where the rent payment is going to come from or what kind of assistance will be available, how much, if it ever comes at all. So it's just so critical that we are able to get these bills passed. And Thirst Group, full-throated, absolutely, we support these. We support Senator Diana DiZoglio and these efforts, and everyone else who will either co-sign or show their support to vote for it. We are so for it. I just wanted to take just a minute to talk about Thirst's goals looking forward, because Thirst has run into the situation where we've had these conversations with lawmakers, and unfortunately, not everyone is so understanding and ready to listen like the lawmakers in Massachusetts. We find a lot of the times people have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. They don't have any experience in hospitality. They've never worked in hospitality. They don't know anyone that's ever worked in hospitality. They don't really think about hospitality outside of the talking points you see on CNN or the National Restaurant Association. And I can tell you there are places where just even your state's restaurant association does not have a good working relationship with like elected officials in the state or the federal level or even the local level. Thirst wants to change the equation here. We want to find hospitality professionals. My boy Joe is in the call here. I'm so excited to meet you later today. But we need to find hospitality professionals, small business operators, bartenders, servers, people who've made a career of hospitality, and encourage them to run for state and local office. That is really something that we think could really make a huge difference when we're having these conversations. To have, you know, people like Senator Diana is fantastic, and you are so lucky to have someone who will listen to you and understand you and ask the right questions. But not everybody is so blessed to have that kind of representation. We need to bring colleagues to the people that already support us, that have that lived experience, and show them that we can contribute into this legislative framework going forward into the recovery. And this is the moment that our industry needs to really take our voices back. And it's really fantastic, the momentum that we're seeing right now building across the country. Fayetteville, Arkansas, New York City, Washington, D.C., Seattle, Austin, Texas. We have people all over the country that are getting ready to run for 2022. And I just want to, you know, I hope that Joe does well in his race later on this year. And, you know, I want to see more people that have the lived experiences run for office, win, so that when we have these conversations again in the future, it's not out of desperation, it's through collaboration, that we are able to say, these are good ideas, they support workers, they support independent operated businesses, and we need to do them. And everyone just says, yes. And that's the end of it. We don't have to beg for scraps. We don't have to be on phone calls for an entire year to hopefully get just a couple of crumbs. We can make substantial changes that will support our industries for the long run and allow some of these businesses that have existed for so long to be able to have a chance to make it through this difficult time and all the difficult times to come. I don't want to take up too much of everyone else's time. If you're on this call, I really hope you'll join us later at the Emory this evening. I want to meet each and every one of you. I want to have a conversation with you. Thirst is doing a lot of great things. You all are doing a lot of great things. I want us to have that mind meld moment. The synergy is here. The momentum is here. This is the time the hospitality industry is going to be able to take back their voice, and we can all do that together. I don't want to leave any single person behind. And this is, I'm so impressed by this group of people here today. You guys are really doing a fantastic job, and I really look forward to the rest of the day.
All right. Thank you so much, Zach. I really want to thank everybody for coming and being a part of this. You know, it takes all of us. It takes all the representatives and all the senators and the constituents and the workers and the owners. We all have to come together, and getting more people involved from the hospitality industry in politics, I think, is amazing. And I think it's also amazing all the support that we've gotten from our Massachusetts elected officials. And like Zach said, I think we were very fortunate to have folks like you that are elected officials that actually are here to listen to what we have to say, and willing to work with us on many, many different levels. And our call to actions today are, you know, get involved. Everybody's voices matter. When we speak up, our elected officials listen. And I know that a lot of elected officials here have great relationships with their constituents. And, you know, we just would like to see more of that. It's easy to talk with all you folks, and, you know, getting the constituents involved more just builds a better democracy, you know. Getting in touch with our representatives about changing the culture and allowing outdoor dining and to-go cocktails is so important. And letting everybody know that insurance companies need to be held liable for their policies, and that small businesses still need financial help is very, very important. So we're just asking everybody to get involved, like, share, amplify. And if we all speak up, we know we cannot be ignored. Thank you, everybody, today. And please, please join us down at the Emory. It's going to be a good time. I really like to see everybody's faces down there. And we're also moving our press conference today to the Emory at 3:30 due to the weather and construction. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you.